Good morning. Welcome to Kailul Baker. There once was a mother who came complaining to the Rav. She came to the rabbi and she said, "What should I do? My son lost his mind." So, what do you mean? She says, "You'll never believe it. He wears these four-cornered garments with strings hanging out from his pants every single day. He makes sure only to eat certain foods that are certified as kosher. He stopped working on Shabbos. He's completely, I don't know what to do. Give me some advice." So the rabbi looks at her and he says, "What do you mean? Why do you think that's a problem? I do the same thing. I have tzitzis hanging out of my pants. I also make sure the food I eat is certified kosher. I also, make sure not to do any type of forbidden work on Shabbos. What's the problem?" He says, "Yeah, but you get paid for it." He means it. The Medrash tells us in Tana Dvei Eliyahu that Moshe Rabbeinu told Hashem the following. He said the Jewish people exist in a physical world. And in this physical world, what's the point of giving them the Torah? Why would you enforce or insist that we do certain types of behaviors or many restrictions and obligations when you have pressures of life? Okay? You're living in a world which, in order to make a living, you have to work. In order to survive, you have to do certain things. And putting on top of that these restrictions, obligations, requirements of what you should do and how you should conduct your business and when you're allowed to work and what you could eat and what type of education you should give your kids and all different types of obligations, that's not helping. It makes it very, very difficult even to fulfill what Hashem wants because of all these mitzvahs that we have and because of the pressures that we have in life. In other words, Moshe was telling Hashem, if you want people to serve you, if you want to have that spiritual concept of mitzvahs and learning Torah, give the Torah in heaven. But if you're giving it to the Jewish people and you put us into this physical world, then it's not. It's very difficult. Okay, living in a desert, when man falls from heaven and you have food automatically and your clothes grow with you, that's fine. You have no bills to pay, no pressures, nothing to do. Learn and daven all day. So why give the Torah to a nation that's living a very normal physical life and expect us to do Torah and mitzvahs? The Torah tells us in this parsha the story of it was actually the second Shabbos that the Jewish people kept. And on this second Shabbos, somebody violated it. What did he do? He went to gather twigs of wood. And it's a biblical prohibition. Can't do it on Shabbos. And he knew that it was prohibited. And Jewish people saw him, other Jews saw him, and they warned him, don't gather wood on Shabbos. There's a punishment for this. You're liable. And what you're doing now is prohibited, and today is Shabbos, and all different types of things. There's different ways that a person could violate the Shabbos, potentially, right? He could say, I forgot that it was Shabbos, right? Or I forgot that you're not allowed to do this particular action on Shabbos. Right? There's different ways of doing it. They tell the joke of three people that were playing cards, and they were caught. It was the rabbi, the doctor, and the lawyer. Mm-hmm. And it was illegal to play cards in that town, in that country. And the police came. They busted in on them, and they say, "Why are you guys playing cards?" So the doctor says, I didn't know that. I forgot that you're not allowed to play cards in this town. Okay. He said, then he goes to the next guy, the lawyer, "Why are you playing cards?" He said, "Because I didn't know that I'm in this town. I knew you can't play cards in this town. I didn't know that that's the town we're in." Turned to the rabbi and said, "Why are you playing cards?" "Oh, I forgot to close the shades." But the idea here is that we have requirements that we need to do. And the first Shabbos, someone violated it. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh, the Holy Or HaChaim, tells us that Hashem said, Moshe Rabbeinu told Hashem, look, during the week, we have mitzvahs to remind us that we have to do mitzvahs. Okay? We have put on tefillin every day. And when you put on tefillin, you remember that you have a requirement to do mitzvahs. It's a physical reminder. It's a symbol. It's something you put on your arm, you put on your head, you see it. Shabbos, we don't put on tefillin. So Moshe told Hashem, how do you expect the Jewish people who are living a physical world and potentially getting caught up with other things, how do you expect them to remember constantly that you got to do mitzvahs and you have certain obligations and you have to behave a certain way? During the week, we have tefillin, but on Shabbos, we don't put on tefillin. So Hashem said, yes, I'm going to give you a mitzvah. And right after this story of the Jew who violated the Shabbos, on the second Shabbos, through gathering wood, Hashem said, I'm giving you the mitzvah of Tzitzis. Because the mitzvah of Tzitzis is going to be a reminder to you constantly that you have to keep the mitzvahs, you have to serve Hashem, you have to remember what you're doing. And Rashi tells us how does Tzitzis do that. We've spoken many times about gematrias, right? Every letter in Hebrew has a numerical value to it. Aleph is 1, Beis is 2. So Tzitzis is very good, is, Rashi brings, is the numerical equivalent of that is 600. Okay? Then you have 8 strings.
However,
on each corner.
It's written with 1 yud in the Torah.
Okay.
The other yud.
Okay. So 8 strings and then 5 knots. So that's 613. And this reminds you of the 613 commandments that we have in the Torah. So being that we don't have tefillin on Shabbos, Hashem said, I'm giving you another mitzvah, not just Shabbos, but this is going to be a mitzvah every day that you do. Now this mitzvah is a mitzvah for men, boys and men. The reason for it is because biblically it's only a mitzvah which is required by day. And any mitzvah which a person needs to do at a certain time, it's time bound, Torah tells us women are not obligated to do. Prohibitive mitzvahs, whether it's time bound or not, they have to keep to. But positive obligations, if it's a time bound mitzvah, they don't have to do. And tzitzis, the mitzvah of tzitzis is during the daytime, not at night. Now, the mitzvah of tzitzis is if you have a 4-cornered garment, you have to put tzitzis on each corner. They have to be tied a certain way. We make a blessing on it. And this is our reminder of Torah mitzvahs all the time. Now, this explains why we have tzitzis themselves as a reminder, but why do you have to have the garment? If you want to have dangling strings that equal 613, that's the gematria. It's also a physical reminder the whole time. Why do you have to have these types of whole garment and, it turns yellow, the whole garment the whole time? What's the point of it? Just have the strings dangling. So in order to answer that, I want to bring in the parsha of Tzitzis, it says you should remember them, and then afterwards it says, Am Hashem who took you out of Mitzrayim. Right? I'm the God who took you out of Egypt. What's the connection to Tzitzis and Mitzrayim? Why are they connected? Okay. Am Hashem who told you. You don't have to say that Am Hashem who took you out of Mitzrayim, and therefore you should do the mitzvah of Tzitzis, or mention Yitzias Mitzrayim when you talk about Tzitzis, as we do. And the answer is that one of the obligations of Shabbos is not just to keep Shabbos, but to increase a little bit. We don't do Shabbos exactly at sunset. We try to take it even a minute earlier. You want to add some of the weekday into Shabbos. And the same thing is when it comes to after Shabbos. You don't break the Shabbos, end it the moment it ends. You try to take it in another minute. But Shabbos is an interesting thing, because no matter what industry you're in, no matter what your occupation is, no matter what your hobbies are, when Shabbos comes in, you have to stop. And a person could ask himself that this is not practical, just like Moshe Rabbeinu mentioned to Hashem, it's not practical for me to fulfill Shabbos, or any mitzvah for that matter, but let's use Shabbos as an example, because it's not allowing me to live my life properly. For example, I'm running a certain business, and the busiest day of the week is Shabbos, or the best time that I have to go on whatever type of excursions I have is Shabbos. And by you restricting me, I'm not able to earn a living. So I can't allow myself, you tell Hashem, to close my shop at 4 p.m. in the winter because it's Shabbos, or 2 p.m. because I have to get home earlier, or Shabbos morning, Saturday, that's the busiest time. That's when they come, in particular industries, that's when they come. I need to be available. Or I pride myself on the fact that I'm accessible, and now all of a sudden, my phone's off, 25 hours.
Inaccessible.
Yeah, I can't earn a living, and I definitely can't compete in the marketplace to use the Rebbe's words. I can't compete properly if I'm closed on Shabbos. So we turn to Hashem potentially and say, look, I can't do the Shabbos. And you could borrow this term from many other mitzvahs, right? I can't afford kosher, it's too expensive. I can't afford to live in a Jewish neighborhood and be walking distance from a shul because real estate, if it didn't go up yet, it goes up. So, but in our context of Shabbos, we say, I can't stick to these things. It's not practical. Comes Hashem and says, by the mitzvah, which reminds us of keeping the mitzvahs, tzitzis, Am Hashem, we took it out of Mitzrayim. Think about Mitzrayim for a moment. What was that like? No single slave ever escaped Mitzrayim in the history of the enslavement. It was impossible. You can't do it. And here, an entire nation escaped. Not only did the entire nation escape without one shot being fired, but it says that they were so laden with gold and silver and wealth that you would need 90 camels per person to carry that load. 90 camels. It was a miraculous situation. So if you want to operate only in nature and say, look, if I work on Shabbos, I'll make money. If I don't, you're taking a day off, you're going to lose. Then you're not recognizing what Egypt and going out of Egypt represented. That was the biggest display of Hashem to the Jewish people, that you're not locked by those rules, so to speak, of the world. And those instructions and the normal, quote, way of doing things. Okay? This was the mistake of the Meraglim at the beginning of the Parsha. The Meraglim and the people that asked for spies, they said, let's be normal people for a change. Right? Every nation, before they go to conquer a land, they send spies to figure it out. So let's also send spies. What they didn't realize was we don't have to operate that way. Look at our history. Hashem saved us, helped us, guided us. So when a person looks in their own life and they say, I can't stick to it because the rules of the world don't work that way, he's forgetting that we're a nation that was taken out of Egypt. We experienced miracles, and Hashem will show us those miracles. Not in a way that's bound by nature. Now, to be sure, you have to do your part in nature. You have to try. But when you're up against a question, do I do according to the formula that the world expects? Or do I do it based on what Hashem is telling me? If they contradict, do what Hashem says. Because the same God that created the world told us to do it, and he controls it, and he'll make it work, even if he has to break nature, and even if he has to go through a miraculous way. And this is a general concept which is important when it comes to doing the right thing. Let's take honesty for an example. Very often a person says, listen, I'd love to be honest, but I can't afford to. Or I can't say the truth because it'll cost me too much. Or I have to exaggerate because that's the way of the world. That's the environment that I'm in. And this mitzvah and this statement of Am Hashem, we took you out of Egypt, is coming to remind you that we have a relationship here. And Hashem operates the same way he took us out of Mitzrayim. He does miracles for us all the time. You do what you're supposed to do, and Hashem will do the rest. Now, this idea of tzitzis, this idea of wearing this four-cornered garment, is here to remind us that constantly, because we're human. And we require some type of reminder about things. But our question is, why do you need the beged? Why do you need the garment to hold the tzitzis? Right? If you want to have a reminder, do a reminder. Put four corners, tie it up to anything. Why do you need to have? So there's a beautiful explanation from the Rebbe. It's printed in the second volume of the Tzitzis. The Rebbe said this in 1953 in Parsha Shlach, our Parsha. He says like this: the idea of a garment. How do you wear your talis? A talis is a garment, a piece of cloth that surrounds you. It doesn't go inside of you. Food goes inside of you, becomes part of who you are. Something that surrounds you is greater than you. It's beyond you. You can't take it in you. Also, how do we wear the talis? We wear it over our head. It's above our head. This concept of surrounding you and being on top of your head, it represents a level which is beyond your grasp. It's higher than your mind. You can't achieve it through your understanding. There is a level when we study Torah which we understand, and we're obligated to understand. You can't make a blessing to learn Torah unless it's Torah Shebachsav, the written Torah, where even saying the verse without understanding it is a mitzvah. But when it comes to oral Torah, you have to understand what you're saying. Okay, so you're supposed to understand, process, use your brain when it comes to learning Torah. But there is a level where it doesn't make sense to the human mind because it's godly's, it's God's intellect. Putting on tzitzis with a talus, with a garment, represents this surrounds me. I can't take it inside of me because I'm a human. I can't understand it fully. The surrounding element and the part of the talus, not the tzitzis, but the talus that goes over our head, reminds us that our relationship with Hashem is greater than our mind. Your mind only grasps so much. And if you're very wise and very learned and you're really smart, so maybe you understand more than most people. But even King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, the wisest of all men, also came to a level when it came to the Parah Aduma, the red heifer, the laws of purity and impurity as they apply with the red cow process. He also said, it's beyond me. There's always a level that we can't reach intellectually. And part of the reminder that we have part of the reminder that we have when it comes to doing mitzvahs is that there's, yes, a reminder, to physically remember it, and also that it's greater than our intellect. So the entire tzitzis, the numerical equivalent of the word tzitzis, 600, the amount of strings and knots which make up 613, welcome, and the garment which surrounds us, doesn't go into us. In the words of Kabbalah, it's called makif. It surrounds us. It doesn't get internalized. It's all here to give us that reminder or that constant sign that we have a relationship with Hashem which is higher. I want to share a story that happened to a great chassid, Reb Meir Rifals. He wasn't always a chassid. He was actually the head of the community of Vilna. It wasn't exactly the most chassidic town at certain points of history. But through a story for a different time, he became a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, a devout follower and very connected to the Alter Rebbe. And this very wealthy man was once traveling on a business trip with his driver, his coachman. He's in the wagon. His coachman is leading the horse. And in the middle, he says, stop. And the coachman turns around and says, what happened? Did something fall out of the wagon? He says, no, one of my tzitzis, one of the corners of my garment fell off. Now, tzitzis, a four-corner garment, needs to have each corner has to have tzitzis. And if one of those tzitzis fall off, you can't walk even 4 ames, which is about 6 feet. Stop the wagon, we have to get tzitzis. I'm not going further. I don't want to travel further without tzitzis. So he said, well, we're going to get tzitzis from on the side of the road. He said, wait. Somebody will pass by. Those days it was very common to have Jewish peddlers. They had all different types of odds and ends, nails and buttons and shmatas, but they also had some tzitzis. We'll wait for one of these guys. We're on a road, right? Some highway or intersection. We're on the road. Someone will pass by. We'll stop him, and we'll get tzitzis. So they wait, and they're looking and looking. He's not moving, and they're looking and looking, and people are passing by, but there's no Jewish salesmen or peddlers that you could buy tzitzis from. So he waits and waits. It's starting to get dark outside, and it's already, it's close, okay, and dark in those days, dangerous and whatever else. And there's, sure enough, a Jewish peddler is going by. So the mayor of Fall says, "Yo, stop, Rabbi Yid, stop." The guy ignores him. So he shouts again, "Stop, I need you." Nothing. After a few times, finally the Jew turns around and says, "What do you want?" He says, Come here. He says, "For what?" "I need, just come here, please, it's urgent." Finally, he convinces him, and this guy comes over to him. He says, "Listen, I need to buy tzitzis from you. Do you have tzitzis?" He says, "Probably in this big bag of stuff, I do have tzitzis somewhere, but I want to tell you something. I'm not stopping now to go look for it and risk being stuck at night on the road. It's too close to dark. I got to get out of here. It's not safe." So the mayor of Fall says, "Listen, we're together. We'll be okay." No, I'm not doing it. "I'll pay you." "How much are you going to pay me? A ruble? It's not worth it." The mayor of Fall says, "Listen, I'll pay you whatever you want. Just give me the tzitzis. Whatever I want. Okay. Give me all the money that you've taken with you for this business trip, wherever you're going. You have money with you. As before credit cards and traveler's checks and whatever else, the Apple Pay. You give me all the money you have with you, and I'll give you the tzitzis." He says, "You got it." He empties out his pockets. He had a pouch with money. Gave him the whole thing. And the guy goes digging in his bag, and sure enough, he finds a pair of tzitzis. He puts it on. He has no reason to go on his business trip anymore. He goes home. The next time he went to the Alter Rebbe, he comes into his Rebbe, and the Rebbe turns around, goes to the bookcase, and takes a small pouch. And he says, "This is yours." He counts it out, and it's exactly the amount of money that he gave this person. This traveling salesman, this peddler, was Eliyahu Navi. And he was sent min hashamayim from heaven to test the Meir Falls. How dedicated are you really? If it's inconvenient or you're stuck, how dedicated are you really? And he brought back the money. It was given to him. The mitzvah of tzitzis, our sages tell us, is shakul. It's equal to all the mitzvahs of the Torah. When you put on tzitzis, that's equal to all the mitzvahs. It's a very, very general mitzvah. It's a very powerful mitzvah. We say that about certain mitzvahs. Learning Torah has that aspect. Tzedakah has that aspect. Tzitzis has that element that it's shakul like all the mitzvahs. A few details about the mitzvah of tzitzis. First of all, a child. By the way, welcome to all those that are watching. You're welcome to ask questions. Of course, if you're on Facebook, share it. If you're on YouTube, you can ask questions in the chat. We'll be happy to respond. Yeah.
So I have one comment about tzitzit.
Okay, let me just finish up, and we can do the comments. So the idea of tzitzis. First of all, a child from the age of 3 years old, that's when the boys start wearing tzitzis. You train them to get used to it, although you're not technically obligated until you're bar mitzvah, until you're 13. But chinuch starts really at the age of 5 or 6, education of the child, and certain things even earlier. So the idea of tzitzis starts at the age of 3. We train them to have payas and tzitzis. That is when it begins. The mitzvah is during the daytime to wear it, but most of us are careful to wear it even at night. Okay, when we wake up in the morning and it's already daytime, you're already wearing those tzitzis. But you wouldn't make a bracha on the tzitzis at night. Now, some people have a custom to wear the tzitzis over your garment because it says you should see the tzitzis and remember. Now, seeing the tzitzis represents the actual strings, right? So if it sticks out, it's good. Even if it doesn't stick out, you're still fulfilling the mitzvah because you have it and you've seen it when you put it on and so on. But according to the Rambam, it's derived from there that the tzitzis should be on your garment so you see it. According to the Arizal, according to the Kabbalah, the garment should be under your shirt. You should specifically not have it sticking out. So there's different customs based on different sources of how it's done. It's fine to do it inside. The actual strings as well, right? Yeah. Reminders are good, but sometimes you don't even need a reminder. If it's real to you, if it's part of who you are and it's important, you don't easily forget those things. But Torah tells us a reminder, because Torah recognizes what Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, as we began with, that we're living in a world that we get busy, and it's sometimes difficult, and a reminder is very helpful. And this biblical mitzvah, which is equivalent to all mitzvahs of the Torah, is the reminder that helps us to do the mitzvahs. It's also a uniform that reminds us that we are Jewish people on a mission with a purpose and a guide. Thank you very much for joining. Questions, comments, we'll keep it on. If those want to ask questions here, I'll repeat the questions so those that are watching could understand.
So in regard to tzitzit, if you look at the Torah, tzitzit is not written in 2 yuds. It's only written in 1 yud.
Right.
In the entire Siddur.
Okay.
So, and Rashi says something very nice.
Yeah.
First of all, you're supposed to remember the yud. Okay, when you say tzitzit, you have to put in mind the second yud.
Okay.
And why? It says here, ואמרו אליהם ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף תתכלת, והיה לכם לציצית. So the first two, tzitzit, tzitzit, the third one is lamed, letzitzit. You could say tzitzit. So the lamed is the 3 yuds.
The missing 30.
The
Very nice, very nice.
missing.
So what he was saying is
That's
that
what
that
Rashi said.
he was saying, being from Rashi, that tzitzis is without a yod, so you're missing 10 for the numerical equivalent if you spell it that way. So it's only 590. But the third time it says the word tzitzis, it says lit tzitzis, 2 tzitzis, and that lamed is 30. It makes up for the yods that were missing. Very good. Okay, we're gonna do a little bit of Rashi inside of the Chumash of the day, which today is Wednesday, Parsha Shlach. In the Gutnik Chumash is page 114. Revi. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe vel Aaron lemer. Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron. Ad masai lo'ida hara azais asher hema maldinim alai. Till when or how long to this group, which means this nation, this wicked nation that is complaining on me? As tlunes bnei Yisrael asher hema maldinim alai shamaiti. I heard the complaints that they're complaining against me. I've heard. Or provoking against me, I've heard. Obviously, this is referring to the Meraglim. What happened till before this point was, as mentioned yesterday and the day before, we had the Jewish people have sent spies with Hashem's permission. They came back with a negative report. 10 out of 12 spies came back with a negative report about Eretz Yisrael. And the Jewish people cried that night. And they said, what's the point of going there? But to be wiped out by the enemies? Us, our wives, our children? Why did we leave Mitzrayim? Who needs this? Who needs Eretz Yisrael? They badmouthed the whole thing. And of course, Hashem was upset. He said, you're crying for no reason. I'll give you a reason to cry. And it was not a good situation. So here Hashem is complaining or saying, why are the Jewish people complaining to me? I heard their complaints about the land of Eretz Yisrael. La'ida hara, the Gemara says, Rashi, ilah meraglim, this wicked group, if you will, is not the Jewish nation, but he's talking about the 10 spies. Mikan la'eda shehi asara. From here you learn that a'eda is 10. A'eda, what's called a group or an assembly, in Yiddishkeit, it's 10. It's an interesting thing that we learned the idea of minyan from Meraglim. Maybe we could talk about it later this week. Yeah, perhaps that's what corrects it. Asher hema maldinim es Yisrael alai. They're instigating, they're provoking the Jewish people to complain to me. And I'm upset that these Meraglim, these spies are coming back and scaring the Jews, provoking the Jews, getting them to complain to Hashem. I heard the complaints that the Yidden are provoking the Meraglim to ask against me, to have against me. Emer Alehem, say to the Jewish people, Hashem tells Moshe and Aaron, Chai Oni in Hashem, which means an oath, a promise that Hashem makes, swear. As you spoke to me, you don't want to go to Israel? Fine, you're not going to go to Eretz Yisrael. As you said, if only we should just die in this desert instead of having to go into Israel and having a battle and be taken into captivity and killed by the enemies, I would just die here. Okay, Hashem said, die here. So be careful what you say, especially when you complain to Hashem when He's doing something good. And Hashem said as follows: In this desert, you'll fall, meaning your bodies will fall, and all of your numbers, anyone that was counted, because the Jewish people were counted from the ages of 20 through 60, they're going to pass away in this desert, meaning they're not going to go into Eretz Yisrael. Says Rashi, anything which is counted, to any count that you get counted by, anytime the Jewish people were counted, whether it was for going out to battle or it was the idea of the giving the shkolim for the Beis Hamikdash, anyone that gets counted, again, is between the ages of 20 and 60, they will die. The Eluhein, these are the ones that get counted. And he's excluding the tribe of Levi because they did not get counted from the age of 20. The tribe of Levi got counted from 30 days old. You're not going to go to the land of Eretz Yisrael, which I said that this is going to be the dwelling place of the Jewish people. Besides Kalev ben Yefuna and Yeshua ben Nun, these were the 2 spies out of the 12 which did not speak negatively against Eretz Yisrael. They actually came back and they said, Shah, it's great, Hashem is going to help us, we'll be fine. Because they did not speak negative, they will enter in the land of Eretz Yisrael. And actually, Yeshua is the one that leads the Jewish people into Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu did not go in, not because of this, for other reasons. One of the explanations is it says that the Medrash tells us that whatever Moshe Rabbeinu does is eternal. Okay, the power of Moshe Rabbeinu and the spiritual strength that he carries, whatever he does is eternal. So if Moshe Rabbeinu would take the Jewish people into Eretz Yisrael, that would be the permanent reality going forward. It would never change. There wouldn't be the idea of Golos and leaving Israel and being sent away, destruction of the temple, and so on and so forth. These things wouldn't exist. So if for Hashem's reasons, that the world was not yet ready for the era of Mashiach and perfection, He didn't let Moshe Rabbeinu go into Eretz Yisrael, which is just to clarify that he didn't not go in because of the spies. He didn't go in because of a spiritual reason, which we don't exactly understand why Hashem wanted it that way. Pasuk Lamed. Okay, only Kalev ben Yefuna and Yeshua ben Nun will be the ones to enter. And the children that you said, oh, what's going to be with them? They're just going to be, they're going to be lost or taken into captivity. And your children, they are going to go into Eretz Yisrael, and they're going to know the land that you so despised. What's going to happen is like this: we're going to wait 40 years in the desert, and anyone from the age of 20 to the age of 60 will die over those 40 years, or 39, whatever's left, and their children, the next generation, will go into Eretz Yisrael. But you that complain that they don't want, you're not going to go. And you'll pass away here. Your bodies. Rashi explains why he uses this term of you regarding the bodies, because he says your children will go in, and therefore when he talks about you, he has to change it dictuk wise. That's the correct way to speak. The amount of days that you spied out the land or scouted out the land, which was 40 days, it's going to be 1 day per year. 1 day per year will be carrying that sin for 40 years, and you'll know that I've spoken, that you've been estranged from me. I, Hashem, have spoken, which means I swear, I'll do this to the entire evil congregation who have assembled against me. They will meet their end in this desert, and they will die there. So Hashem says that's the negative thing that's going to happen to the Yid, to the Meraglim, and to that generation as a result. And the actual people, the spies themselves that Moshe sent to spy out the land, and the people which Moshe sent, and they came back and they provoked the Jewish people to complain by speaking negatively against Eretz Yisrael, against the land of Israel. Those people passed away. They died in a plague in front of Hashem. We missed the Rashi. And when this group of Meraglim came back from scouting out the land, had imu alavas kol ha'eda. They instigated, they provoked the entire group. Those people, and they died. Whenever you use the word diba, in this case it means provoking, but it means educating. You're cultivating within the people a certain idea. In this case, that Eretz Yisrael is not conquerable. It's a term from using your lips in a negative way. It exists in a positive and exists in a negative. There is diba, which could be positive. You could use your words in a very good way. So here Torah expresses that it was used in a negative way. He underscores. Diba, farlirish b'la, is in Old French, it's farlirish. What was this plague? How did the spies die from what they did? In the appropriate death, which is fitting for them, midah keneged midah, measurement versus measurement. The way they sinned, that's the way they are going to be punished. How did they sin? They sinned with their mouth, with their tongues, rather. Right? They spoke negatively. Their tongue was twirled out all the way to their stomachs, and worms came out from their tongue and going into their stomachs. It was a terrible death that they suffered with the tongue, because they used their tongue in a negative way. Why does it say they died in front of Hashem? Of course, in front of Hashem. Hashem is everywhere. In front of Hashem means with the same way that Hashem uses justice. The way Hashem gives punishment is midah keneged midah. When someone does something negative, in this case, they spoke bad with their mouths, their punishment was a punishment of the mouth. The Rebbe underscores in multiple places what the Gemara tells us, the Medrash, that midah keneged midah is, how you say it, measure for measure, the way you act, the way Hashem punishes you in the same way. When it comes to positive things, Hashem does it so much more. Not just measure for measure, but way more than measure for measure. So when someone does something good, we mentioned last week that Miriam, we waited for her, right, for 7 days. Why? Because she waited for Moshe. She waited for Moshe for 15 minutes, half an hour. How long did she wait for him? And we waited for her 7 days. Tosefta says it was 500 times more. So when we learn about midah keneged midah, that Hashem gives measure for measure, it's equal. That's when it's for punishment. When it's for reward, Hashem pays many, many times over. It says about tzedakah, a person gives charity, Hashem pays back many times over, whether it's 10 times or more. And when a person helps someone else out, it says that his mind becomes clearer. It says 1,000 times fold. So we'll use this opportunity to underscore that measure for measure, in the negative, it's equal. In the positive, it's many times more. But that was the punishment that they got. Going to stop here. Join us again for the next learning.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
Question number 1. Where is the raya in the Torah that